that. There we go. We appreciate you all being here today for the orientation. As I said, this is going to be fairly comprehensive, but it's just going to be an overview of the COG structure and our services and programs. Please ask questions if you have any along the way. I'll be running a PowerPoint presentation, and then as we will be sharing this with others as well. Let's see. Slide. There we go. Okay, hopefully you see the COG logo and the barn image. The COG is a structure of collaboration and partnership, and my predecessor used to liken it to the Amish barn raising. The Amish barn raising, was an opportunity for people to come together collectively to do a great project that benefited individuals in the community, and the COG is very similar to that. We do operate under a legal structure that is provided for under State Act 180, but we are a voluntary association of elected officials from the member communities in the region. We're not another layer of government, but the COG provides a means of communication, cooperation, and joint action that serve the interests of the municipalities individually and collectively. As I said, we're organized under Act 180 that defines the structure and the authorities. For instance, we don't have taxing authority, but we can create our structure, our membership, and voting requirements. All of those are a matter of local choice, and those decisions are articulated and laid out in the Articles of Agreement. And you will find overall Articles of Agreement for the COG, as well as specific Articles of Agreement for particular COG programs. And those are all available on our COG website. In addition, we benefit from and operate under Title 53, which says that municipalities may delegate any function or power or responsibility to another municipality or a created governmental unit. So in this case, we are the governmental unit created to carry out collectively some of the responsibilities, such as code enforcement, building plan review, those sorts of things, that has been delegated to the COG by our center region municipalities. So COG was established in 1969 to promote coordinated land use and infrastructure planning, to facilitate the exchange of information, to provide a forum for discussion on regional issues, and to produce cost-effective services. And from there, we've grown into quite a lot of other areas of the cost-effective services. You're probably all familiar with the map that shows the area which we serve, but we want to make sure everybody realizes outside of the center region municipalities, we also serve code services to Bellefonte and refuse and recycling to Benner Township. This chart is a handy one to refer to that shows which communities participate in which services. For instance, Half Moon Township does not participate in Parks and Rec, fire protection, or refuse and recycling. As you heard the other night during the general forum meeting, last year we began a strategic planning effort, and the chair of the general forum the other night relayed the mission statement and vision statement that was approved by the general forum last August. We also had approved at that point 4 goals and our statements of values. Since then, we've been working on fleshing out those goals with strategies and tactics, and we'll be bringing back a draft plan for general forum to consider later this spring. But the mission statement is that the Center Region Council of Governments supports the residents who live, work, and play in the diverse communities that make up the center region by providing cost-effective, consistent, and high-quality public services. And the vision is that the Center Region Council of Governments will continue striving to have a positive impact on the quality of life of those living, working, and playing in the center region by maximizing the benefits of shared services through municipal partnerships. This is a fairly complicated organizational chart, but it does show the interrelationship between the various organizations that support and work with various COG committees and departments and agencies. So I don't expect you to be able to see all of this. It is available in our budget documents and on the website in a form that's a little easier to read, but we did color code it so it's easy to follow. The dark blue goes from the public through the municipalities and the general forum to the executive committee and all of the COG committees here to myself and the agencies that I supervise. And then it shows the linkages then between agencies and boards or committees that guide their work. So I've been involved in local government for 35 years and started here with the COG about 2 years ago. The Office of Administration, amongst other things, coordinates our hybrid meetings, produces the annual program plan, the program preface that comes out every 2 years, and the summary budget. I have a great team of folks here with me in this office. We took a Zoom picture of our group last week. In addition to myself, we have our finance director, Joe, our HR officer, Becca, Scott, the office manager, Carrie's our finance assistant, and Lou is our facilities coordinator. We provide support for the general forum and some of our standing committees and special committees. We also are responsible for the overall financial and personnel management of the COG and its agencies, provide facility management services, and respond to questions or concerns from the public, as well as elected officials like yourself. So I encourage you to reach out to me if you have questions or need information. If you're concerned or have questions about information specific to a particular committee that you're on, please certainly work through that. The committee staff persons, whether it's the office manager or whoever is tied to supporting that particular committee. For the Regional Fire Protection Program, Steve Bear is the agency director there, the fire director. And oops, come on. So the fire program serves 4 municipalities with 3 fire stations located in College, Patton townships, as well as the Borough of State College. We average between 1,100 to 1,300 annual calls each year. These calls for services dipped during the early part of the pandemic, but have now risen to levels higher in 2021 than they were before the pandemic started. There are about 100 active members of the Alpha Fire Company that support the fire protection program, and the Regional Fire Protection Program owns about $7 million in fire apparatus. The annual cost for the fire protection program in 2021, excluding students, was a little over $29. That is still a very cost-effective way of doing business, but we know it's not going to be sustainable long-term because of the decline in volunteerism for fire departments, not just here, but across the Commonwealth and across the country. Lots of fire departments are seeing the same trend. So we did do a study that was completed in 2020 that will provide guidance for the COG and elected officials to make decisions in the future on changing the staffing model and bringing on more full-time staff as it is dictated by both trends and the data for the services provided. We have the Emergency Management Agency, and Sean shown there reports to Steve Bear. He's in charge of the emergency management for the whole region under direction by the Emergency Management Council. The Emergency Management Agency is a collective responsibility pooled because each municipality is required to have an emergency manager or somebody responsible in their municipality for emergency management. And by working together, we do this through the Emergency Management Agency. We also collaborate with Penn State through the partnership. We have 5 emergency shelters with backup power. If the chair declares an emergency that is then ratified by the municipalities, then the emergency conditions are in effect, and Sean leads the efforts on that. The Emergency Management Council is also has a representative from the General Forum, and that's the vice chair. So Parks and Recreation is our largest agency, led by Pam Salakangas. And the Parks and Recreation Agency, Center Region Parks and Recreation, serves 5 of the 6 municipalities and maintains 56 sites, almost just over 1,000 acres of property. And of those 56 sites, a number are the municipal parks. And so we're out there mowing and taking care of not only the regional parks that are owned and operated by the COG, but also municipal parks in many of the communities. There are a few municipal parks that are still maintained by municipalities, but for the most part, all of the parks in the area are handled by Center Region Parks and Recreation. In addition to the parks, there's the Millbrook Marsh Nature Center, the 2 community pools, Park Forest and Welsh, as well as the Active Adult Center. In addition, there are 3 regional parks, Oak Hall Regional Park and Hess Softball Complex. Those are open and operating, and we will break ground in April on the Whitehall Road Regional Park. Center Region Parks and Recreation also provides instructional programs, health and fitness programs, summer camps, sports leagues, and special events throughout the year. SCLO Center Region Library is led by Lisa Reeves Collins. They are open 56 hours a week, back to a normal operating schedule, as well as operating a digital branch with over 1.2 million visits a year. We have many checkouts, and as you can well imagine, the 500,000 checkouts were really heavily weighted towards digital checkouts during the pandemic, but now we have things have balanced out again more as they were before the pandemic between digital and print versions. But as we continue to move ahead in a more normal operating environment, we're continuing to expand services and options, such as recently we opened the first remote book pickup out in Half Moon Township that enables people to check out books and have them placed in a locker so that they can retrieve them closer to home. That's in addition to the 7 remote book returns that are provided around the region. The Center Region Refuse and Recycling Program is administered by Shelley Motto. And as I mentioned earlier, in addition to the municipalities that participate, they're part of the Center Region, we also provide services to Benner Township. The monthly cost of refuse and recycling is $20.19, which is still less than it was when the program was established in 1991. Walt Schneider leads our Center Region Code Administration, and that agency has been entirely self-funded through permit fees since 1978. The agency hosts and completely funds a regional software package for code administration as well as zoning for the municipalities to utilize, and that's been in place for a number of years, but we are in the process of replacing that software during 2022, and the new software will roll out and be in place in 2023. Currently, committees are working on all of the different modules to plan how they can be utilized. And there are more modules that can be utilized by the COG as well as by municipalities, such as service requests, asset management, facility management, and so on. We are the top rated code agency in the Commonwealth based on ISO ratings, and that translates into good insurance ratings for all of our residents in the area. A few highlights. We have 21,422 units that are rental units inspected once every 3 years. And that is something that is a very important safety measure to make sure that those units are regularly inspected. We also provide the sewage management program for over 3,000 homes. We're proud to note that all of our code officials have 6 or more national certifications. We also provide the sewage enforcement officer services to 4 municipalities. And because we have 6 of our staff that are certified SEOs, we can provide very responsive services and limit the delays in scheduling those inspections. Code also provides fire safety education, and it's also important to note that the local building codes don't apply on the University Park campus. Our Center Region Planning Agency is led by Jim May. Our agency provides local planning services to 3 municipalities and regional planning for the region. And the regional planning includes comprehensive planning, sewage facility planning, the regional growth boundary, climate adaptation, or climate action and adaptation. So that's certainly a huge one right now, and other regional development planning. We also provide transportation planning services for the region, including the long range transportation plan, the Center Region Bike Plan, coordination with CATA and PennDOT and FHWA, as well as leadership through the Center County MPO. Our principal planner, Tom Zilla, is retiring this spring after many, many years of service to the COG, and Mike Bloom started today as his replacement. So there'll be a little bit of orientation and overlap to transition to Mike over the next few weeks. We are in the process of updating our COG budget process, but generally speaking, we will be getting underway with the capital improvement program development and updates, which is a 5-year plan that will be starting shortly. And part of that is tied to the facility condition assessments that I mentioned earlier. We're also going to be taking a 5-year look out at future staffing needs and future studies that need to be funded in the future. And during the spring, our agency directors also begin to develop their initial budget forecasts. These translate into our program plan that help us provide the first glimpse of what we expect to provide in the coming calendar year. Usually the program plan is completed in July and distributed for comment by the municipalities during the month of August. And that translates then into the detailed budget that gets reviewed by the Finance Committee. And in October, a summary budget is produced after the Finance Committee has reviewed and made changes. And then that summary budget then goes out again for municipal comment and eventual adoption by the municipalities as part of their budget in December. So it's a long process here, but we are confident that we are constantly trying to improve that. And over the next few weeks, we'll be reviewing an updated plan with the Finance Committee. So more to come on that. There are 3 different ways that we allocate costs to municipalities. First is by formula shares, distributed by mathematical calculation based on multiple components, including assessed valuation and population. There's usage shares that are distributed based on the level of benefit in the community. Library and the active adult center are calculated that way. as well as percentage shares. So as we get into reviewing finances with you later, we will be able to share more information on how those formulas apply. Those formulas are reviewed periodically by the Finance Committee and most recently with the municipal managers last June. It's not all municipal funding. We try to work hard to bring in non-tax revenues. We have brought in significant grants to support projects like the Whitehall Road Regional Park and the Spring Creek Education Building Phase 2. Has received a number of donations to help with that. Also, non-tax funding comes in the way of support from Penn State University, Center County, and the Alpha Fire Company. So, as you know, you're members of the General Forum that is made up of 32 members from 6 municipalities. Meetings are generally the 4th Monday of the month. There is a formula to rotate the chairs by municipality. So it's pretty well known who will be in that seat for the next few years. Meetings are available both on CNET, on the CNET TV channel, as well as streaming on YouTube. And as you saw the other night, we do get regular updates from PSU, from Sharima Young, and a liaison from the school district. Voting is generally voice votes, with each elected official voting aye or nay. Most votes are unanimous or pretty close to it, but occasionally we need to do what's called a unit vote. And we do have a unit vote coming up in February. It will require each municipality to cast 1 vote for the municipality. This is based on the majority of the individual board or council deciding how it will vote on that unit vote. So during the course of a meeting, if we have to have a unit vote, either planned or called by one of the members, there will be a process that involves everyone calling into a particular phone number for a conference call with the members for their municipality. And a little slide there, similar to what's on the screen there, will be shared so that all of you will be able to call into your particular municipality's number. Once you're in that unit vote caucus, the public can listen in if they are so interested, but you will take a few minutes and your municipal manager and the chair of your board will lead the discussion, take the vote, and you will then return back to the room and the report will be presented as to what the vote was for that unit vote. Unit votes are required for property acquisition, borrowing, changing the COG articles of agreement, et cetera, because they require unanimous vote. And the item coming up in a few weeks will be a lease vote. We have other relationships that are strong with Penn State and the school district. For instance, for Penn State, we have support for the fire protection program, emergency management program, and the hazmat program, which transitioned from Penn State to the COG a couple of years ago. And they provided funding along with the equipment that has transitioned to the regional fire protection program. In the past, they've sold parkland to the COG, and they provide the lease to Millbrook Marsh Nature Center, to the Parks and Rec Authority. SCASD provides linkages and liaison and participation on the general forum, as well as COG committees. They are involved in emergency management training and planning. They fund classes at the Nature Center, and they own the land that the pool is built on, that Welsh pool is built on, that is. They also provide indoor space for recreation programs and allow for use of the natatorium. It should be noted that right now, during the pandemic, we have not been able to use many of the indoor spaces that we had previously. So we hope to return to that normal usage after the pandemic eases. As I said, they're also very active in the emergency management program. and our emergency manager provides training for the school district on emergency response. Coming up in 2022, there are a number of things that you'll want to be aware of or can expect to hear more about. I mentioned a little bit about the Regional Fire Protection Program and the study that was completed in 2020. That is a look forward into the future to identify points in time where we expect to need to add additional staff, and that is not kind of in a hard and fast way identified on a calendar, but more linked to when particular data indicates that based on trends for services or declining volunteerism will dictate that we need to bring in more full-time staff. We also are looking out into the future for a potential fourth fire station. So there are things that we're monitoring both in terms of data and trends for that program. We've also formed a special committee for Parks and Recreation governance, and that committee will be working to determine the optimal structure for the future for leading and guiding the Parks and Recreation program. That may make changes related to the Parks and Recreation Authority and or the committees at the COG that oversee parts of Parks and Recreation. Right now, Parks and Recreation may have any of its recommendations come through the Parks Capital Committee, the Facilities Committee, Finance Committee, Executive Committee, and then the General Forum. From a long-range planning standpoint, we are looking at budget process refinement, as I mentioned earlier. Classification and compensation study will launch in a few weeks. Well, at least the RFP will launch in a few weeks. And that is something that has not been done in 17 years. So that will be an important study. We have the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan that will be implemented, and we have some study money available to bring in consultants to help with some of the technical components of that. Maybe one consultant, or it might be two or three. We also have the continued work of the Solar Power Purchase Agreement, a working group that is supporting a collaboration of 15 or 16 organizations to purchase power together as part of our sustainability initiatives. And the Center Region Parks and Recreation Agency has a staffing study underway right now. Additionally, we have facility projects underway. We focus on taking care of what we have, meaning that we have a number of properties and facilities that we focus on making sure that we are preserving those assets, and that is supported by our facility coordinator who was hired a year ago. And he is in the process of completing the last of the facility condition assessments. Those assessments that were completed early enough last year fed into the capital improvement program. And those that are yet to be completed will help drive data into the capital improvement program this coming year. Projects that are also underway include the phase 2 of the assessment for the replacement of the boardwalk at the Nature Center, getting the Whitehall Road Regional Park program under construction, and planning future phases at Hess Field, Oak Hall Regional Park, and Whitehall Road Regional Park. Also soon to be under construction is phase 2 of the Spring Creek Education Building and the Welcome Pavilion at Milbrook Marsh Nature Center. And from an operational standpoint, I mentioned the code software implementation. That's the Tracer system. There will also be an assessment for the code service delivery model. Are we funding this in the proper way? Are we meeting operational needs as we have ups and downs in the economy? Or are we positioned appropriately for that? We'll also be looking at how inflation is in fact impacting the COG, and we're in the development stages of a fleet management plan. So at that point, I think I'll pause briefly to see if there's any questions on anything that I've brought up to this point. Anything about any of our agencies or projects coming up in 2022 and beyond? Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'll move on. One of the things we work hard at is our connection with the public through CNET, through print and electronic media. Last year, when we had a new reporter come on to the Center Daily Times, I provided an orientation to how the COG works for that reporter. We also have a very robust COG website that Scott maintains, and with the help of the various agencies, we have access to a lot of our records, including, I mentioned, the articles of agreement, as well as minutes and agendas and things like that. From time to time, we do direct mailings, as well as each agency has their own web pages to maintain and keep current. And there are a number of social media accounts throughout the COG. And certainly we have the hybrid meetings that you're familiar with. So next, what is your role? Of course, serving as a member of the General Forum, as I outlined, and serving on the committees that you've been assigned to by your board or council. We also ask that you provide reports back to your board or council, and I think each community has a slightly different way of handling that. Some of the communities are going to written reports back to the board or council, whereas others have verbal reports and written reports before each council meeting. So we encourage you to provide that feedback back to your fellow elected officials, especially in the case when there is a request from a committee for feedback. And right now we have a request coming from the Finance Committee for feedback on the priorities for the coming year. And so that is something that each board or council will be discussing and helping provide feedback to be channeled back through their liaison on that Finance Committee. So we encourage you to provide that communication, but also ask questions of us and offer ideas, stay informed, and certainly actively participate. If you have questions or suggestions, we certainly want to make sure that you are heard and that we get your feedback. As part of this as well, we will be holding additional orientation sessions, on-site tours and briefings that will go into much more detail about each of the agencies. I know some of you have asked about tours of the library. Excuse me. Those will be scheduled soon, as well as tours of the Regional Fire Protection Program. We may end up hosting 2 or 3 of those, because smaller groups are better, especially in COVID times, to do those tours and briefings. So those will be coming out, those announcements will be coming out shortly. Finally, the key to success for a COG or any other form of intergovernmental collaboration is the informed involvement of elected officials. So we want to do our part to make sure you are informed and aware of everything that is going on at the COG. We try and be as transparent as possible with all of our meetings and budget processes and other decisions that are made. So we welcome you to attend any meeting, not just the committees that you're part of. If you're curious about what's going on, there's certainly options for you to do so. And as we noted earlier, many of our meetings are available on CNET, or recordings are available after the fact. If you missed a meeting, you can find links to those meetings by contacting Scott or looking on our website. So with that, I'll stop sharing and see if there are questions that I can answer to help make things a little bit more clear about how the COG works and anything that I covered during the presentation. questions or comments or?
I did have one question, Eric. Thanks so much for the presentation. Will we have a copy of the PowerPoint?
Certainly, we can send that out. I'll ask Scott to PDF it and get it out to you after we're done. Other questions or curiosities? It only took me 2 years to get to this point. So if you guys don't have too many questions, you're doing pretty well getting acclimated. So one of the things that I would like to offer, and hopefully we can email each other and set up a time. I'd like to either set up a visit by Zoom or for a cup of coffee, or one of the things that was very good to do during the early stages of the pandemic was to go for walks in a park or meet at a pavilion in a park where we could be outside and not have to talk with masks on. So I will reach out by email and try and set up times that we can each do that.
We might want to wait until it's like April or May or something to do an outside walk in the park, although I guess we can all bundle up, right?
Yeah, we'll be happy to do it whenever, whatever's convenient for your schedule and the weather schedule. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we'll pause at this point and we'll get the slides out to you. Feel free to reply to Scott and me if you have questions or things you thought of afterwards. And we'll share this with the other newly elected officials who couldn't make the meeting today. But I'm so glad you could make time to join us, and thanks for tuning in and being part of the orientation.
Thank you.